This video is sponsored by Artlist.
I'm going to shoot over 16 low-key narrative movie style shots, and I'm going to do them all with this guy, the SmallRig RC60 60 watt light. We're going to talk about how I lit them, and then I'm going to give you a few of my quick thoughts on the light. Couple months back, SmallRig sent me the RC60. So I wanted to just break down some of these shots to show you how I lit them using just the RC60. I did use practical lights, and there's one shot in here, this first one, that I did cheat and use some little M20Cs for this kicker light. So for this first shot here, there's a little bit of the phone bouncing back here, giving a little bit of eye light, and then here I have a small M20 just sort of kicking here to help separate me from the background. But part of what I wanted to experiment with this shot is sort of removing a traditional key light and almost keying with fill. You know, in a lot of David Fincher movies, the scene is actually mostly backlit. It's mostly falls into silhouette, and so I have my practical lamp here. You can see here the little M20C giving me that kick. And then I have the RC60 just bouncing at a very low wattage off the ceiling here. This shot was cool. I was sort of going for like an M. Night Shyamalan type of shot. I like having frames within frames. Very simple setup here. Essentially matched color balance to the room. And then I have and you can see it in the mirror here, I have the RC60 just bouncing off the wall right against here, and it's bouncing back onto my face. Very effective. I think a lot of the times people struggle with door shots or door frame shots. It's like, how do you light it? Where do you place the lights? And bouncing off the wall as I'm doing here, I think is a nice little hack. Same thing here, just a different setup. Really like the way this one turned out. And then we have some night exterior shots. I really wanted to see how far I could push the light in a night exterior. Honestly, you know, I'm using the FX3. I'm pushing the ISO to 12,800. So that's doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. And then really, I'm just kind of doing an upstage key. I wanted it to bounce off the background a little bit, but it's essentially the RC60 with that little mini softbox, no egg crate, and just lighting the talent and a little bit lighting the background and trying to also sort of bounce off the yard, as it were. Pretty much the same setup here, but again, just casting that one light, even more so off the background and off the overhanging trees, while also still trying to catch that upstage key light and get that little Rembrandt effect there. Extremely simple setup here and very effective. This could totally pass as a shot out of a movie, and you can see I warmed it up to 3700 Kelvin here. These shots were cool. I really let the practical lamps do a lot of the heavy lifting here, you know, some of these inside lights, and then this backyard flood lamp to sort of get that David Fincher silhouette backlighting look. But once again, I just have the RC60 upstage. It's very high up, boom down, and it's just sort of flooding down, giving me that nice edge. It'd be nice to have a second light here to help separate me from the background, but the goal here was to see what I could do with just one light. Same thing here. The light is back here. I'm trying to make it look like it's coming from the background flood lamp. Upstage lighting my face once again. As I rise into the frame, this is the same shot. The light is catching me here, and it looks really nice. It works out. And again, you're just buying that it's all coming from this floodlight. It looks very realistic, but it's also heightened and stylized, which is what I love personally. Exact same setup, just repositioned for the light to catch here. Here you can get a behind the scenes view of what it looked like. I did have it on a very high C-stand, again, with the mini softbox, but it's fairly harsh altogether, and I have it by and large matching the background lights. Yeah, so this shot's interesting. I essentially have the R60C a little forward over here, and it's bouncing off the wall, so you can see what that looks like here. and giving this nice, lovely upstage soft key light. Again, I'm going for this semi silhouetted, lots of practicals, David Fincher type of look. Skin tones are a little more orange here, balanced to 3600 Kelvin. That was intentional though. I'm really pushing kind of a warmer look here. Cools down nicely though in post, if that's the preference. I think this really worked well. And again, just when you only have one light, starting with practical and then just find the best placement for the light. By the way, I should mention that most of these setups don't necessarily work for if you were doing a narrative film. And if you are doing a narrative film, you should probably have more than one light. But part of why they don't quite work, and they work more for sort of content creation, is because it's a little bit shot by shot. You know, the famous moniker is spaces, not faces. This is not quite using that approach. I get as wide as I can, and you'll see in the next shot. But in this case, this is more of sort of a content creation approach in which it's okay to start with your practicals and consider that your space lighting, and then do a little bit of beauty lighting with your additional lighting. In this case, just the RC60. And then for this shot, what I was thinking was, hello? So listen, the video looks good. Just have a quick note, should only take you about 5 minutes. Yeah, sure. What's the note? I need you to change the music. Let's take a moment to talk about our sponsor, which is Artlist. Artlist is an all-in-one library for high-quality, royalty-free music, sound effects, stock footage, and templates. My videos are all heavily driven by music. In fact, the first step that I take for every video is pretty much to open up Artlist and start making a playlist. This gives me ideas for tone, pacing, and even visuals. At the end of every project, I go the extra mile to sound design my videos with impacts, transitions, room tones, and bass swells to add that extra oomph. For $16.58 a month billed annually, you can have all those music and sound effects you could ever dream of, and the license will cover you on everything up to broadcast and TV. Now, my personal use of Artlist alone makes up for the cost of it, but what about freelance editors? When you think about it, one paid client project will pay for a whole year of Artlist. It's a no-brainer. I'm telling you, I have been using Artlist for years now, and I could not make the videos in the way that I make them without Artlist. The music quality is so good, the amount of music that they have, it just allows these videos to be whimsical and different and really pop. But there's pretty much options for everything. I mean, you could score a whole movie using just Artlist. It's that good. So click the link at the top of the description and get 2 additional months free if you sign up for an annual subscription of Artlist. That's 2 additional months on top of the whole year that you have subscribed to. So that's 14 months for the price of 12 months. Do it, do it, do it. Thanks again, Artlist. I did go ahead and go for a wide shot here. I just have the RC60 behind this corner blasting. It's a little bit showing itself, but I think it does look natural. It looks like there's a light back here, and it's giving me this nice little edge and a little bit of depth and dimension, more so than we would get if it was just the practicals. So there are, if you can hide it and you can place it strategically, there are ways in which you can do wide shots as well. This was a fun shot. I've noticed in a lot of specifically Greg Fraser movies, whether it's the Batman or the Dune movies, he has this approach. You know, we were talking earlier about how movies these days have really low key lighting, really low contrast ratios. Well, Greg Fraser has this approach that I've noticed where he almost key lights from the back. You know, traditionally, if you were to do a soft key light on this side of the face, basic 3-point lighting would say do a backlight, edge light on this side to make the subject pop off the background. And you could still do that in this case. What we're doing here is we are pretending that this is the key light and is motivating this light. And I essentially just have the RC60 behind me at an angle just so it's catching the side of the face. And then I brought in a bounce, and you can still then get detail on the face, detail in the eyes, but it's this really nice low-key effect that gives you almost that style of the Batman where there's not actually a lot of light on the face. It looks very realistic. It doesn't actually look lit, but there's still contrast to make the subject pop, and the fill, which is such an underrated tool. I feel like in sort of the YouTube era, we've kind of stopped using bounce boards and fill, and I've been falling in love with that as a key light. Yeah, and here you can just see how that's working. So the RC60 slightly diffused, and I think the light was at 100%. That was the only way to get enough level to get bounce, which is not totally ideal. I was at ISO 800, and I am again reflecting back onto the face and the eyes here. And then we move into some of these cool daylight interiors. This is kind of a weird shot, but essentially here I just have the RC60 with a reflector, and I'm essentially just shining the light down from the side, basically on my chest, to get sort of that hard on the body light here that you're seeing. But I'm also bouncing off of a bounce board. Very similar approach to the scene before, this time more of a natural daylight effect. Very similar approach here as well. Hard light on the body with a bounce board to the side over here, reflecting more onto my face. Again, keeping it on the side. Something that does look natural, and you see this a lot in like Oppenheimer, for instance, is I think we so often try to stop down for the windows to make it to where we can see everything outside the windows, but that doesn't always look natural. You know, it kind of gives it this HDR effect and almost makes the lighting that you introduce more sourcey. So here I was okay with letting the windows sort of blow out, and it makes this daylight look really natural and real. Same thing here, hard on the body, but I'm letting that hard light kiss sort of my chin just a little bit more strongly. And here you can see the behind the scenes of the shot. Again, it's very harsh on my actual chest, and you can see where the bounce is reflecting back onto the shadow side of my face. I love this shot. I think this shot worked out really well. It looks really natural, really cinematic, and again, extremely simple. A tiny RC60 light and a bounce. Okay, so for this next shot, I'm just showing you a before I turned on any lights. Again, I like to set my levels. I like to sort of get my color tone at a starting point. Extremely simple, same concept as before, except even more simple. This is literally just the RC60 angled down, and I put it in the bathroom there, and yeah, it's just angled down, hard on the body, and bouncing up a little bit onto my face. Very simple, very dynamic. It looks a lot better than shots that many people spend a ton of time on and way over light. So sometimes simple is better, and it's still extremely dynamic. We have sort of that checkerboard variation here, dark to light to dark to light, etc., and repeated throughout the image with just one light. So much of lighting is just where you place the light, just being strategic about it. And this is a pretty wide shot here, and you could move in for a close-up and it would still be working. Okay, and finally for these last shots, I was going for one more sort of low-key David Fincher type looking shot here. In this case, I did have a bounce on this side of my face, and I had the RC60 boomed up above. So here's the behind the scenes of it. Again, we're both catching that bounce here, and it's hitting the upstage side of my face, giving me a little more edge and dimension, as well as my hand. And then we are essentially top upstage key lighting with our backlight. I think for this shot, ideally, I would have a softer source as a backlight. It comes across a little too Robert Richardson here for what I'm going for, but I still think it looks cool. And then our last shot here, similar concept. I'm booming from over here. I'm full 3200 Kelvin on this shot. So this is with the lights turned off, practicals only. Again, I love to start with my practicals and start with sort of the darkness level of the room where I want it. Then I've got my key light. But what's cool about this shot is that the key light is actually not angled at me. It's actually bouncing off the board here. So it is catching a little bit of me, but if it was angled towards me, we'd be getting a lot of spill on the couch over here, So again, another nifty way to use bounce, a tool that I think is underutilized these days. All right, so we shot the whole video using the RC60 from SmallRig, so I would be remiss if I didn't give you at least my quick thoughts on this. This is not a full review. There's plenty of those on YouTube already getting into all these specs and the nitty-gritty, but I do want to give you my thoughts on this light and be honest about it. Look, in all fairness, this light came out 6 months ago, so you know, when you got lights like this that can do similar things but are way smaller, this little Zhiyun light, it's a little unfair. But there are quite a few things about this that I still do think are preferable than even some of these newer, very innovative lights. So for one, the build quality from SmallRig is always just fantastic. They just really design things well, everything feels solid, and it's quite a good looking little light. Even just having this mounting spigot is a big deal to me. There are so many lights now that don't come with them, or they come with ones that you can't remove and are very cheap and plasticky. So to have one that's a high quality plastic that you can also remove, fantastic. Also comes with a grip handle. They really want to sell this as kind of a, you know, run and gun handheld light. One thing that I do appreciate about this light is just simple on and off switch, and then I turn the intensity. I don't have to learn how to turn this light on to turn it on. The controls, extremely simple, extremely intuitive, no learning required. So the biggest downsides to this light, the internal battery, it's awesome. I think that is one of the big innovations of this light, that it has internal battery. It just keeps the whole setup clean. Yes, this is bigger than some of the Zhiyun lights, but we're including a battery in here, and you can get up to 75 minutes. That's the downside though. What happens when you run out of battery and you're in a remote location? Well, 75 minutes doesn't get you very far. Shooting this video ran into that same thing where, you know, the battery ran out mid-shoot, and it's not like I can swap a battery. So there's pros and cons. It's like, if you know you have a small window where 75 minutes is fully sufficient, then this is fantastic. If you know you're gonna run out and have to add a battery, not so fantastic. There is the expandability here, but I wasn't able to get full output out of it, and I was having some issues of the light shutting off and decreasing in power, so I didn't love that. But all that to say, internal battery is still a cool innovation. It's not perfect, but it's pretty cool. My other two big gripes about this light are that the reflector mount is proprietary. They do have a softbox that you can buy separately, and then they have the reflector mount, but it's not a mini Bowens mount. So I don't really know how to adapt it. I'm sure SmallRig has adapter, but I wish they had something a little more universal. I mean, heck, I would even just take Bowens mount, to be honest. And then my other gripe, I know we're spoiled now to have every light controllable by an app, and I think for a while I was like, well, who cares about that? But when you have a light this small, you know, up on a C-stand or boomed out on an arm, it does become kind of a pain when you can't control it with an app. So that would be a nice little feature, you know, not the end of the world. Overall, fantastically designed light, a lot of innovation to it, a lot of fun to use, high quality. It does come with its issues, and part of it is just we're just spoiled these days. We have so many good options and so many good lights. Would I recommend it? Yeah, but do I think that 6 months later it's still you know, this game changer light? I don't know, probably not. But by no means is it a bad light. Thank you all for watching this video, and if you like what you saw, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know if you want to see more videos like this. If you like this format, if you like the format of the last video, let me know, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.